Hello, and welcome to our video audio podcast, Couched in Color. I'm your mental health expert, teen and young adult crusader, and psychological scientist, Dr. Alfiee. This podcast reflects my life's work, helping our young people and young at heart identify mental health challenges, disrupt negative patterns, and discover the best versions of themselves. I'm so happy that you've joined us. For over 20 years, I want you to know that I've had my finger on the pulse of BIPOC teen mental health. I recognize that historically and currently, with these dual pandemics of COVID and racial injustice raging, our young people are suffering, sometimes they're struggling, and always the care that they need is quite scarce. So each week, I'm joined by young people, mental health experts, celebrities, and influencers to help us uncover the secrets to healing the hearts and minds of our BIPOC teens, their families, and their communities. Here at Couched in Color, we believe deeply in spreading love and light, bolstered by culturally relevant science. So let's dive in. Welcome back. We are here with my friend, my sister from another mister, Dr. Deborah Budding, who is a clinical and forensic neuropsychologist. So for all my folks out there who have no clue what that is, what I'm going to ask Dr. Budding to do is share with us a little bit about what that means. So you can, part of this is we always are trying to focus on things that are important to educate and raise awareness. Let me say that because people are not stupid just because they need to be educated for our teens and our young adults, particularly for diverse communities. And one of the reasons I love Dr. Budding is because as a white woman, she is a person who is an authentic ally. It's not performative. It's very authentic, which I can attest to myself. And I have to tell you the story of how we met because it's kind of wild.
Wild.
But Dr. Budding, if you would just share with us a little bit about what it means to be a clinical and forensic neuropsychologist and tell us a little bit about you. We'll start there.
Okay. So basically a neuropsychologist is somebody who focuses on brain behavior relationships. So it's a specialization within clinical psychology. So it's an additional 2 years of training and supervision and experience on top of a PhD. That's why there aren't very many of us.
I bet, right? Anybody got time?
And I also have pediatric specialization. So I have a long history of working with children and adolescents. And I do see adults as well, because everybody used to be a child. That's right. But I've always had a strong interest in working with kids. And I have a strong interest in neurodevelopmental differences. So I have specialties in ADHD and in learning disabilities and in autism spectrum disorders. I do see people with traumatic brain injuries, like have car accidents and stuff like that, but it's not really my specialty. I really specialize in more kind of complicated. I'm sort of like the Dr. House kind of neuropsychology without the pain medicine addiction. So I do that clinically, and then I also serve as an expert witness. So awesome. I go into court and I testify about stuff.
Oh my God, that's amazing. So for any of our young people out there who have any interest in what it means to be an expert witness, I would love at some point for us before we finish to talk about a little bit about what that means. Can you give us a brief, maybe this is the way we get into it. When you say forensic neuropsychologist, what does the forensic piece mean?
So the forensic piece, for example, means when our friends at the Federal Public Defender's Office call and say, hey, I got a case, right? This person is facing criminal charges. But for example, this one guy I saw was cleaning his gun and it blew up in his face and he got a brain injury and started robbing banks. Now, you don't see that every day in your office, you know?
Right.
So I would think.
Right.
So they called me in to do an assessment and to speak to some of his impairments in judgment, for example, that started up, and to make those links to the brain injury. I get called for like sentencing evaluations. So, for example, somebody who has learning disabilities, who grew up with really difficult circumstances and has trauma. Most of the people I see who are incarcerated have terrible histories of trauma. And so I try to get that understood. And so most of the cases I'm on, I'm just used for sentencing or to explain things to a judge. But I don't tend to testify all that often, although when I do, it's fun. It is, it takes a certain kind of person, I think, to do testimony.
Yeah.
But if you're the kind of person who kind of enjoys extemporaneous speaking, shall we say, it's a fun thing to do. Now, I haven't done it recently for obvious reasons because plague, but in fact, I was just, we know somebody in common at the Federal Public Defender's Office, and I was just saying the other day, God, I miss being in jail. I mean, I don't mean it like that, but I miss being able to do that work. And because so many of the people I see are people who would never have had access to a good quality assessment when they should have had that as a kid.
Yes. That's a perfect segue because, part of how we connected is around our shared passion for these issues of equity, particularly in our global field, the umbrella. We're under the same tent, even though we have slightly different specialties. This idea of really wanting to see young people in particular, right, because we're both kiddo folks, have good assessment so they can get the right kind of care.
And access, so they can get access to things.
Yes. Tell me what you mean by that. Access to what kinds of things?
Access to services, access to job, access to all kinds of support. When I was more actively doing my podcast, you came on and we talked about the greasy pipeline filled with holes. And how Black and non-Black people of color, people are like, oh, we need to hire more people of color. And then they do, and they have no supports. They have all they have are a bunch of students or new hirees. And then there's nobody at the top who looks like them.
That's right. Right.
And it, and then they get stuck with people like me, and I'm not the worst white lady to have to deal with, but it's like that, it shouldn't be that way.
But they should have a white lady like you, because a white lady like you at least is going to say, I understand that these are issues and let me do what I can to be supportive of you. Let me give you access to some of these goodies that I have. And I think what often happens for our young people is they get with people. Some are well-intentioned. Some have no good intentions whatsoever. Let's be honest, right? They just taking up space and hoarding all the goodies. And we're going to get to another hoarder in a second of all the goodies. But I think for somebody, that's why I say this authentic allyship, because part of what strikes me about our connection was, first of all, it was through social media. It was through Twitter.
Right.
When I was way more active on Twitter.
It was a cesspool.
Yeah. Right. And I was like,
before then.
Yeah. And so it's just around this shared commitment and passion for just wanting people to be treated fairly and equitably, right? I really feel like that's a lot of what the conversations would be about. Either you would say something or I would say something. And then, I don't know, 2, 3, maybe 3 years ago it was. I think it was 3.
Maybe 3? It might have been longer.
Yeah, I don't think it was much longer. Maybe 3? I don't know.
Maybe 3.
Yeah. We met. What was the name of that place? It wasn't the Cliff House, the restaurant.
That was after. First we were in DC. I came to DC.
Oh, that's right. And I came and you did the
we did the little podcast thing.
Yes, we did the podcast, but I'm thinking of the, what do you call it? Airbnb.
Yeah.
I had a fancy Airbnb and had all that cool cheese. Now look, it's your fault that I'm now kind of obsessed with cheese plates. Cheese and crackers and girl, I can do that in a minute, but I digress. But we had that great conversation as part of your Neuro Curious podcast. I can't wait for that to start up again. I'm really excited to listen and engage and learn. But part of it, I think the connection is around not just my passion for making sure that people can get into the pipeline and stay in the pipeline, young people in particular who are of color, Black and of other racial ethnic groups. But it's also about on the back end, how that improves what you just described, which is access. So when I'm thinking of access, I'm not necessarily just thinking about, do you have insurance or not? I'm thinking about once you decide that you want to go see somebody, first of all, if you're a person of color, you're probably not going to be able to go see a clinical neuropsychologist who's Black or brown, right? There's probably like
It's
5 of
hard.
them.
I mean, I gave your assistant a list of some
Yeah.
of the organizations, like the Society for Black
Yes.
Neuropsychology and the
Yes.
Hispanic Neuropsychological Society. So there are organizations that people can go to find,
Excellent.
competent folks. But a
Excellent.
lot of times they're stuck with somebody like me, and and I was talking to a grandma recently who was
Mm-hmm.
raising her grandson who was
Mm-hmm.
autistic,
Mm-hmm.
and we were talking about being terrified,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely terrified.
Mm-hmm.
And she was sort of shocked that I got it, which
Mm-hmm.
why wouldn't she be shocked?
Mm-hmm.
And but we were saying, like, oh my gosh, so how, like, he's had trauma, so I need to find you a therapist
Mm-hmm.
who understands trauma, who understands autism in Black children. And like the list is like smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yep.
and smaller. And
Yep.
and like literally we both sat and cried about it because I
Oh.
couldn't give her this big list of names. And I just was like,
Yeah.
really scared.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And every week I have a conversation with somebody where I'm like, do not call the police if your child is having aggression problems.
Yes.
So this is how, I've been spending a lot of my time lately,
Yeah.
dealing with a lot of bullying issues. I see a lot of kids who are traumatized by bullying.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't that be more of a problem now that the list
Well,
is taken off?
yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that is it's painful to think of. It's painful to think about, but it's so accurate, right? Because we're in an era where, like you just said, the lid has really been blown off for the last 4 years. Let's be honest. We have somebody who was in the senior leadership of this country, right? The senior most position you can get, who's making fun of people with disabilities, right? Before they even took office, and who gets in office and is saying all these, I mean, name a group that's not heterosexual white male, name any of those groups, and they've been picked on. He has picked on them actively.
Absolutely.
Or I think about the name calling associated with these just virulent negative stereotypes, right? Just these awful stereotypes, like so-and-so is dumb, and all that kind of thing. And so it's just, when you see that constantly, it's like, how do kids not, right, look at that?
How do they not start
replicating the behavior. Yep.
Well, when my stepdaughter was young, the show Rugrats was on, and we had to ban her from watching it because she started acting like Angelica. And I was like, "This is not happening.
Right.
We're not doing this."
Right.
So,
right.
But people imitate what they see.
That's right.
And so, a part of what I do, like when I do public speaking, I'll have parents say, "Oh, and our video game's evil," and I'll say, "Well, I play them personally."
Right.
And it's really more, you just have to pay attention to the content, and you
That's
have to
right.
pay attention to how people are interacting online.
That's right. That's right.
You have to listen.
That's right.
So
and you have to, but you have to be engaged, right? So we got to tell people.
I've had a few, I have a teenage son. We have we have some similar overlaps in the ages of our kids, and
that's right.
I've had to have a few little conversations with him about him and his buddies, and I'm like, I thought I heard a slur, and I'm like, and he goes, "Oh no," and I said, I said, "I don't care that you were not the one who said it.
That's right. That's right.
I don't want to hear it again." And I tapped on his little microphone. I'm like, "I know you did it. I know it's you. Right. I'm going to tell your mom.
That's
if you
right.
Don't stop it.
Right. Watch it. Right.
Like I'm like, fear me.
I'm not playing with you kids.
I am not playing.
But you know what? And to me, that is a clear indication and a beautiful example of authentic allyship, because it's not about just, "Oh, that's so bad, honey, I don't want to hear that." It really is about, I'm going to call you on it, and I'm going to tell you what I require from you. I better not hear it again. right?
Exactly.
We're going to shut all this down. And it's good modeling for kids because the kids
Right.
need to understand, right? And it puts in their brain, okay, my mom's not joking around,
Right.
right? And if you're going to do that, you can't come to my house whenever we get back to that, or you
Right.
can't be in my space and do that
Right.
because my mom is going to lose her stuff. And
Yeah.
I'm not, you know what I mean? And I want to keep my mama
Yeah.
happy.
And I was always that mom. When my older son, before he went to college, his friends would always come to our house and hang out, and
Mm-hmm.
I would always, buy them treats and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
but one of his friends was making some homophobic kind of comments, and I just sat him down and I said, listen, no, you cannot, not in my house, not in
Nope.
my house,
Right.
and not outside my house either.
That's right. That's
I'm
right.
going to be hovering above you, ready to slap you.
That's right.
You're going to know that I'm
Right.
following you,
Right. Yeah, we don't play around with that.
He said, you're scary, lady.
That's right. Fear me. What you
And
just said, fear me.
exactly.
Don't play with me. Don't play with.
Exactly.
So where do you think that comes from for you? Because I think there are a lot of parents out there who may have an intention of doing better about, especially after this summer, right?
Yeah.
After
Yeah.
our brother George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and
Yeah.
Ahmaud Arbery and just all, Jacob Blake, all these people and so many trans women of color that I don't even know their names who've been murdered, right? Just with all of that, I think many people, those of us who are maybe heterosexual, cisgender, we're just gonna put them all in it. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Who have these because of
Well,
intersectionality.
if you have intersections of privilege, my
Right.
feeling is
That's it.
People who talk about feeling guilty about their privilege or
Right.
ashamed about their privilege, I just want to reach through and slap their faces, because it's not helpful. Like, you're
No,
feeling guilty for your privilege does not help you at all.
that's
So
right.
I feel like if any access of privilege I have, I just feel like that gives me an entree
Yes.
to say and do things because of it.
Yes.
And so it's a responsibility. So for me, I just see it as a responsibility to use to help other people. And it's not that deep. It's not that hard.
Right. But for some people, it is hard because they don't want to take the time to understand where their points of blurry vision are. I'm gonna say it like that, right? They want to leave it all out here. They don't want to bring it to the center. I always have this visual. You got to bring it to the center and to the forefront so you can deal with it. People don't want to deal with it.
Well, because they don't this, one of my specialty areas in terms of writing is deep brain structures and automatic habit formation and unconscious processes.
Love it.
So that's sort of the literature that I've spent a lot of time with. And one of the things that I talk about is, look, you can't see your own, you can't see what you can't see, right?
That's right.
You need other people to help point things out.
That's right.
And one of the things that really gets me steamed is the I don't see color people.
Oh, girl,
right?
Lord
So I don't care if you're black or white or purple. I don't know why purple is always a color they bring.
Right.
Like, what is this?
Right. Who is this purple person? Right. And I bet they care. They want you to see them be purple. I bet you they do.
Exactly. Those are the people that really bother me. And so usually those are the people that I will go out of my way to speak with about it.
Yeah.
Instead of leaving it to somebody else to have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes a white person needs a white person. Sometimes a woman needs a woman. Do you know what I mean? A man needs a man. Sometimes a black person needs a black person to talk about why homophobia and transphobia are bad things. Like, one of my other guests is he's black and he's the director of the National Black Justice Coalition, which is a very queer LGBTQ focused organization for black people and people of color.
Great.
Right. And so having him on really allows us to see, like having you on, there are multiple points of intersectionality, right? And you're always sort of functioning
right
with one of them. Like, so you're having privilege and there are parts of you that are disadvantaged and it's all happening at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We contain multitudes.
That's right.
So I keep kind of coming back to that with families. Is one of the things in my practice. I'm sort of considered a safe space for trans kids. So,
Oh, beautiful. I love that. And it doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
And so I spend a fair amount of time trying to help parents who, fortunately, most of the people who come see me, the parents are very affirming, and it's
Okay.
fabulous, and it's
Oh,
it's wonderful. But on the rare
yes.
occasion when that's not entirely the case,
Mm-hmm.
we end up having to talk about, I'm like, guess whose birthday's coming up? You know what you can give them? The gift of pronouns.
Mm.
And it just, and also I have a sense of humor. I don't know if you've noticed that about me over the years.
No, I would have never
But
guessed.
I do try to use that.
Yeah.
Because I find, especially when you're having to have difficult conversations with people,
Mm-hmm.
if you can maintain a sense of humor,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it helps them be less defensive about stuff too.
Mm-hmm. 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 I think that's important. That's important. So one thing I'm curious about, and I don't know why I'm curious about it, but I just love the idea of a woman who's about my age, who's into gaming.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hear about this gaming. What are some of your favorite games? Like, okay, so I'm going to tell you why I'm asking. So my son is 14,
Mm-hmm.
and my baby boy Miles, with his beautiful self, I was on Twitter and I saw an ad for the new, I'm kind of half obsessed with Miles Morales Spider-Man. His
There's
name
a
is
new
Miles.
there.
My son's
Yeah.
name is Miles. He's like a little Black and Puerto Rican kid. My son's fully African American, but like I just see my son and I'm like, Miles Morales. And so they have this new, I guess PS5 is out.
Yeah, good luck getting one.
Don't get one?
No, good luck getting one, because
Oh, right. He said it was sold out.
No, and they're so big, you're gonna have to add a wing to your house.
That's what everybody says. They're like huge.
To find a place. I can't.
So do you play PS? Do you have a specific system?
I live in a gaming household, so everybody plays. So if there's a system, we have it. So
okay.
So, but we don't have any of the new ones because we can't get them, and apparently I don't have the right connections. So
neither do I. I know somebody who does, but Ron Funches, but he won't give me one. So I need Ron to give me one. Yeah, he's like special. He posted it on Instagram. He has some game I never heard of. I'm sure you've heard of the game. I don't know what it is because that's not my world. But
right.
Yeah. I'm not. I wish I need connections like that so I can get me a PS5 and be cool.
My husband basically is saying, "Oh, we'll get one eventually. They'll have them eventually." I'm like, "No, I want it now."
Right.
I'm Veruca Salt. I want it now.
Right. So do you have a favorite game or genre or something?
Switch around. I like MMOs. I like story games. I've been playing World of Warcraft forever.
Okay, time out. Girl, what's the MMO? I don't know what that is.
Massively multiplayer online game.
Oh.
So you're playing with other people, but you're playing sort of through an avatar. I sent your assistant a picture of one of my characters that I play.
I love it. She loved it too. Yeah.
So I like stories. So I was a literature major as an undergraduate.
Okay.
So I like playing the stories. I think it's fun. And so I played all the BioWare games, which are like Mass Effect and Dragon Age. I'm more of a Dragon Age than a Mass Effect kind of gal.
Okay.
So we just got the new Assassin's Creed.
I know that game. I've heard of that. Yeah, at least I know what that is.
It's Valhalla. So I've got, Nazis have ruined everything. And one of the things they've ruined for me is enjoying kind of Viking stuff.
Yeah.
Whatever. But, and I played, I've been playing Animal Crossing.
Yep. I know that one too. Those you probably named the only two that I know. I heard of World of Warcraft, and then I know like these other games like that nobody over the age of 20 probably plays, like Minecraft. Grown people don't play that, right?
Yeah, my kids actually still play Minecraft once in a while. Fortnite's the one that all the younger kids are playing.
Yeah, my son used to be like kind of obsessed with that. I'm not sure what he plays now. We have some restrictions.
He's probably kind of grown out of it a little, and he's probably moved on to the
Yeah, I need to, speaking of which, I need to get back on it and see what he's playing. The only restriction we have is I don't do blood and gore because he's 14. Yeah. So they have these, maybe you can confirm this for me. You can do versions of games where they cut out, you can still shoot people, but there's no blood and guts. Have you heard this?
Yeah, absolutely. There's gore sliders. Like you can for sure lower the
Okay.
gore. I'm not big into the gore stuff myself.
Okay.
I don't like it. I will say my youngest son has started playing League of Legends.
Okay.
And that boy can curse like a sailor.
Ah,
Wow.
that's hilarious. That's hilarious.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we're working on that one, but it's hard to say because I'm almost as bad as he is. So
yeah, me too.
So I'm a hypocrite,
Yeah.
because he reminds me all the time, of course.
Aren't we all as parents? Once you become a parent, that's like instant hypocrite, right?
Every day. Every single day.
I love it.
But because I work with kids, I mean, the fact that I know video games and I play them, actually, this is my excuse and I will go to my grave sticking with it, actually makes it easier for me to have rapport with the kids I see.
Of course. Of course. And do you find that in the work that you do with kids who are on the autism spectrum, does the gaming, do you find that there's a different way? What's my question? Does that help you engage with them and develop better rapport, because gaming is you and sort of the machine, like you're not having to necessarily engage person to person. And I wonder if that is something that kids, who are high functioning or maybe not high functioning and have autism. Yeah.
By the way, we've moved away from the high and low functioning.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you for correcting me.
Yeah. Oh, listen, I'm learning it every day myself. Okay. So we're talking more about support needs, people who are high support versus low support needs.
Oh, I love that. That's important. So say that again, because I want to make sure everybody hears that.
With autism spectrum, we don't really talk about high versus low functioning because they're very artificial terms, actually.
Okay.
And that for most people on the spectrum, it's a kind of waxing and waning levels of impairment depending on what the environment is demanding and stress levels and stuff. I see a lot of people, for example, who have access to speech.
Yes.
But when they're under stress, they can lose it. And so I spend a lot of time explaining that this person is not oppositional and defiant, as you're stating, but that you have asked something of them that has been distressing for whatever reason, whether it's the content or whether it's just a demand. A lot of folks on the spectrum have some processing speed issues, and they can get very distressed when asked to do something too quickly. And so playing video games, I spend a lot of time talking with parents about how actually after having a long and stressful day, diving into a video game and being able to hyper focus on that for a little bit is very calming.
Oh, that's good to know. Yeah. So tell me the terminology. It's not high function and low function. It's support needs.
So it's low. I would say it's high. I mean, that's today. Who knows what it'll be tomorrow. But, and also there's a lot of discussion about terminology just in general. Like we don't use Asperger's anymore.
Really?
Officially, it's all at autism spectrum. But a lot of people still want to use Asperger's. But then other autism advocates don't like that because they feel like it's Aspie supremacy kind of thing, and it tends to
right. If you have Asperger's, that's not the same as being autistic. So you're like sort of this separate category. Right. That's how we were taught it.
Yeah. And so, so a lot of disability advocates are really trying to look more towards similarities as well as differences among people on the spectrum. So there, because there are people who are very anti-neurodiversity who say, y'all don't understand my kid because, my kid's so much more disabled than you ever were and that kind of stuff.
Right.
I just don't, I don't like disability Olympics. I don't like, I think I told you I was going to get a t-shirt saying, just say no to autism tragedy porn.
Yes.
I'm not there for it. And so, I think we need to give people the supports they need.
Yes. Period.
And the time they need, and to presume competence.
Yes.
And to accept that disability is real. But it's also contextual, right? So there are certain circumstances where a person can be at more or less of a disadvantage depending on what the environment is like and what's being demanded.
That is so, I feel like that's such a wonderful place to segue towards the end, because what I like about what you've said is, if I were to summarize it, it really is about, well, I guess I'm paraphrasing what you said. We want to acknowledge the person in front of us. Who is that person? We want to see that person, and then we want to respond to that person with the kind of supports that person needs. And that's not just about autism. That's anybody. Right? And yeah, that's anybody. But maybe there's something unique that we need to attend to when we're focusing with someone who may be on the autism spectrum. As well, there's something unique that we would want to focus on if the person had, say, depressive illness, or if the person had anxiety, because there are unique facets of it, right, that require, I don't know, specific tools, specific ways we want to engage. So it's not to single it out, right? Autism versus anything else.
And you don't want
really
to silo stuff, right?
That's right.
And also the thing I remind people all the time too is that is development, right? So we're seeing a person at a particular juncture in time.
Yes.
And so the person in front of you now may be very different in a couple of years, maybe not very different. We don't know, but we have to also take things, I see a lot of people who have had things said to them about their children by professionals that make me want to go out and throat punch.
Right.
Like, oh, your child will not, like for a 3-year-old, oh, your child, you might as well just institutionalize them now independently, stuff like that. And I'm thinking, where's your crystal ball?
Right. Are you mad? Right. And who says that to people? You don't know. That's not your place to say. You don't know what that child's life is going to be like, right? You don't know.
Not. And that's why I always say, look, this is where things are at right now.
Today. That's it.
And when we'll see. And
that's right.
These are some things you can do right now to make things easier, right? Because I get a lot of the, when, my kid wants, I want my kid to get off the video game and I say time to stop and all hell breaks loose.
Yes.
Right. That's a real thing, but there's also that doesn't mean, you should not let your child, and especially not your autistic child, play video games. Like that is not the lesson.
That's not the answer. Right.
What you do is front load it. You say, here's the situation, and here's the timer.
That's it.
And you're going to play for this long. I'm not telling you to stop. Mr. Timer over here is saying time's up. Okay, thanks, Mr. Timer. Like it doesn't have to be personal,
Right.
So, but that self-regulatory thing. Oh, I should tell you actually. I can't remember if you've met my friend Laura or not, but she's going to be doing starting up the podcast with me again. But we just co-authored a book chapter on executive function for a neuropsychology handbook.
Oh,
and we're looking at executive function as a sort of within the affordance landscape. Right? So looking at it as embodied and having both controlled top-down aspects, but also more automatic and conscious bottom-up processes. And that a lot of interventions that are aimed at helping executive function try to help you think your way through. But when you're in a fight-flight state,
that's it. You're not thinking.
Your body's like, I'm dying.
That's right. It's automatic. Right. That's right.
And so we're trying to encourage people in training to think more broadly in those ways, and using the language of affordances and of some of the ecological psychology stuff to include culture in that, right? So if you're interacting with your environment, part of that is going to be your culture, and part of that is going to be, are you a part of the dominant culture or not part of the dominant culture, and how does that impact your environment?
In other words, there's no one way for this to work. There's no one way for us to support people. And what we always have to be doing is thinking about context.
Exactly. That everything really is contextual. And what that means, though, is it's more work for the person doing the intervention. But my feeling is, do something else then.
That's right.
So if you don't want to keep up,
that's right.
You don't want to keep up with
go away
literature. If you don't want to keep up with cultural literature, do something else that doesn't involve vulnerable people.
That's right. I agree. And I think we have to get away from this idea that Again, there's only one way, and the only way is the way that we were taught when we came through graduate school. Do you know what I
Me, that
mean?
was a
Like, that's a
while
joke.
ago.
Right. It was a while ago for me too. It was over 20 years for me. So it's way changed. Just
And I meet people who have not cracked a book since then, I swear.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. For
And they
sure.
are
So
experts, and they will tell you.
they're
People who tell
experts.
you they're experts, or people tell you they're allies, are
Right.
like, you should not
Right.
do that.
Right. I'm like, if you got it, who you trying to convince? If you got to tell me over and over, who needs to believe this, me or you? So
Exactly.
I am there. But you are definitely not one of those people. You are definitely a person whose allyship is demonstrated in her day-to-day life and in her day-to-day behavior, which is part of the reason why bad Alfie. I feel so awful that it took me so long to get you on here, but I'm so glad that I
Oh,
have
I'm
you on
so
here
glad
today.
too. Well, and
Yes.
you know me, I can talk all day long.
I love it. I love it. So in closing, let me ask one final question. And what I want to ask is, I wonder if there's any, you dropped lots of gems, I think, for parents who may be wondering, right?
Yeah.
Do I need to take my child in to be evaluated? I'm seeing these kinds of behaviors. I think you've also given people gems to let them know whatever it is that they're seeing, whatever it is that they're dealing with, or whatever thought they're having about their child, or maybe even about themselves, that this idea that they shouldn't feel like they need to be in silos. They shouldn't feel like their behavior
Right.
needs to be siloed, or that there's something wrong with them, right? It's really all about, let's figure out what you need to have. What kinds of supports do you need? And this is the part that I
Exactly.
love. What supports do you need? What I always say is for you to operate from a place of optimal mental health. That's all relative. What's
It's all
optimal
relative.
for me is not
Right.
optimal for you, right? And vice
Right.
versa. So,
I mean,
and
these last 4 years,
yeah,
honestly,
yeah,
it's gonna take me years
yep,
to get out of the fight flight.
yep, yep.
You
Just
know,
digging out of it. I've
just
been telling people that, like, just this week, like
yeah.
my last week, my blood pressure was off the charts, right? Like
Oh,
I
you and me
was,
both. I took
yeah,
a COVID test, and they're like, "Well, you're negative, but your blood pressure is terrible."
yes, exactly. And I've like worked really hard to manage it because I'm Black, and Black people have
Yeah.
hypertension. So, and it's in my family, but the blood pressure, the nausea, there's just all these different things where I've just
Yeah.
been like, oh my God, like I just need like all this stuff to like ratchet down. And what I've been saying to people is, it's going to take you a while to get back to sort of equilibrium. It's not going to happen like that just because the
Exactly.
election's over, because there's still all this other stuff going on, i.e.
Right.
130 Secret Service people, which is horrifying to me.
I
Like
know.
there's going to
Yeah.
be all this stuff. And so what I'm asking people to do is just to be patient with themselves, but to be active, right? This thing about active coping, you can't just sit back and it's going to happen. You have to do stuff that's
Exactly.
positive and affirming, and that's going to take care of you to help you reset. So I'm really appreciative that you even said, right, these past 4 years, we're going to be digging out of it for a while, because it's true.
It's and everybody's got their feelings, right?
Yep.
And and so parents aren't neutral.
Yep.
Parents have their own personalities and styles
Yep.
and experiences, and so I always like to see parents and children kind of working together, and
Yes.
as opposed to in my area, a lot of times it's like, here's my kid, fix them. See you later.
Right. And I've never quite fully understood that, what this thing is about fix my kid. Cause it's like, no,
Yeah.
your kid's not broken. Let's
Right.
start there. Your child is not
Right.
broken. Your child is fine. So give me one
Well,
second.
that's my thing with autism too. You
Yeah.
know that
Yeah. Yeah.
that I was meeting with somebody about about their kid, and I was looking through all of these what I felt to be a very kind of denigrating approach in a previous evaluation.
Yeah.
I'm a very opinionated person about these kinds of things.
Oh,
Yeah, but and I just looked up for a minute, and I was like, I don't know, your kid seems like a perfectly nice autistic kid to me. And I mean, so you can get a diagnosis if that's
yes.
if there are services you want to access.
Yes.
But I would also say sometimes, in my late assessment of people,
Yeah.
if they're upset that they weren't recognized
Yes.
earlier, I'm like,
Yes.
well, but some of the hardcore ABA interventions that people used to do were very
Yes.
traumatizing to people. So
Yes. That's
why
right.
don't we reframe it so that you
Yes.
dodged a bullet?
That's right. That's right. That's
Right.
right. Right.
So it's very how do I put this? I really think it's important that um we not feel like we have to find a rigid label for things necessarily.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because the
Yes.
DSM has nothing to do with the brain, frankly.
No.
So I can use that. I can speak that language if that's
Right.
what's needed or wanted, because I'll do
Right.
what needs to be done.
Right.
But the important part is understanding somebody's function and helping them to access as much of their own capacities as possible, and
Yes.
to be able to have relationships with other people that make them feel good and not
Yes.
bad.
Oh, beautiful. I could not have said it better. Beautiful. So
you actually probably could have said it better.
No, that was outstanding. That even sounds like maybe the title of the episode. So let me just say what I've learned today. The two biggies I've learned. We don't say Asperger's anymore. I've learned that, right?
I mean, some people do.
Right. But the expert, you're not saying you the expert. I'm saying you the expert. The expert said we don't say Asperger's, so we don't say Asperger's anymore. I mean, that's educational.
Until they
That's
change
good
it
for me.
again. It could change next week.
For now, we don't say it. Another thing is we talk about supports, right?
Yeah.
We don't talk about people as high or low functioning. We talk about what do people need to support them, to function optimally, right? And optimal is for them. It's all relative to that individual person, to help them feel good and to help them have, I don't know, I always talk about having an opportunity to enjoy your life, right? It doesn't mean you walk around happy all the time, but you want to enjoy the life that has been laid out for you. And so whatever kind of supports people like you, clinical and forensic neuropsychologist, Dr. Deborah Budding, can provide, or people like me, Dr. Alfiee, can, whatever kind of supports we can offer to help people. People like you and I are very happy to do that, with the understanding that there is something special and unique about everyone, and that culture and context are really critical and important. So let me ask, where can people learn more about you? Or I know you're full. Maybe you don't want to tell us how they get in touch with you because you're full and you don't need any more new people. But
no.
Right? No. Yeah.
I have a website. I don't update it very often, but who knows what its status is?
Right. But they can find you there.
Younger looking picture on it, and I'm keeping it.
I love it.
So deborahbudding.com. I don't even know if I have my CV on there, but most of the stuff I write is pretty academic. So I need to change that. I know, because there needs to be more translational work done. And so I'm trying to do a little more of that translational work.
Translational meaning, folks, is more accessible by everybody. General public. Yeah.
So a lot of it's very academic, and most lay people are just going to be like, what is the cerebellum? And why should I care?
Right. But some people would be interested in that, so they can learn more about your writings and things from your website.
Yeah.
And tell us the podcast again. Tell us the name of the podcast.
So the podcast is called Neurocurious. We have there's backlog of the old ones if people want to go and listen to them. And there is definitely one that's got Dr. Alfiee on it.
Yes, that's the one. Everybody, y'all want to go listen to that immediately.
I know. Oh, and that's because we were talking about Shuri, because it was right around Black Panther coming out.
Yes.
Oh.
I know.
Now I'm all sad again. Anyway.
I know.
So I will come back on anytime.
Please.
Somebody cancels on you, just call.
Please. No, they don't need to cancel. We just have you back on so we can have a detailed, in-depth conversation about, I really think this conversation about autism and identification and treatment and interventions, and even helping parents accept, right? Because I've met so many families, particularly families of color. Yeah, that acceptance piece is hard.
Very important. And I know a lot of advocates who really don't like the term intervention, because it tends to be associated with very intrusive and coercive kinds of methods to try to train their kid to act, quote unquote, normal, whatever that is. Right. So I think, I think parents get a lot of bad information, typically. And I spend a lot of time saying, please stay away from the internet. I will give you some, Thinking Person's Guide to Autism, for example, is a wonderful source for
you said autism. A Thinking Person's Guide to Autism?
Thinking Person's Guide to Autism is one of my go-to places. Also, ASAN, it's like the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network.
Oh, okay.
Those are
Wonderful.
very good sources and very autism focused, as
Yes.
opposed to pathologizing.
Yes.
We're going to fix you.
Yes.
approach.
Yes. There's something wrong that needs to be fixed.
Right.
It's more about the
Nothing like
idea of
that.
support. Like you said, we're going to acknowledge, right, what's unique about you, and we're going to find things to address the uniquenesses of who you are, all in a supportive way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. No coercion.
Love it.
Coercion
Yes.
bad.
All right, Dr. Budding. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It has been a
Thanks for
pleasure
having me.
as always. I can't wait until I'm no longer chicken to fly, so I can come out there where you are and like look at the ocean and all
We
that
got
good
to go
stuff.
back to that restaurant too. Like I haven't been to a restaurant since March. So
Me neither. I go drive by to pick up stuff, but
yeah, I
sitting
have not
in,
gone.
forget about it. Forget about it. So thank you so
Yeah.
much, and I look forward to having you come back again soon.
Thank you.
So there you have it. That's a wrap for another episode of Couched in Color. We want you to know that we deeply value you, all of our viewers and our listeners, and everyone out there working to support optimal mental health, both for themselves and for our young people. And one of the best ways you can help our movement is by leaving us a 5-star review on our YouTube channel and everywhere you enjoy your audio podcasts, and by sharing our podcast with a friend. Please also tag us while you're out there listening and watching. Finally, head on over to dralfiee.com for more information about me, www.acomaproject.org for information about my nonprofit, and those are the places you can go to learn more about how you can help. So I'll see you next week. And until then, I'm going to say what I always say, which is that I'm wishing you lots of love, lots of light, and that I'm hoping it is always, always informed by good, culturally relevant science. Take care.